Hey everyone, thank you so much for pressing play. Well, we got a great one for you today. Where are we? Well, we are in the home of Wendy Savino. Wendy Savino, as you guys know, was shot on April 9th, 1976 behind Nina's Restaurant on Boston Road in the Bronx. And we reached out to her and she got back in touch with us with a very interesting story. So everybody, I want to introduce you to Wendy. And Wendy, let's just get this out of the way before we start the interview in earnest. Who do you believe shot you that night in April?
I know. It was David Berkowitz, son of Sam.
Wow. All right. So we will get to the night of the shooting, but we have some questions for you before we get to that horrible night. And just to establish who you are as a person. You're a very, very interesting person to me outside of this shooting incident. So I noticed a British accent. Why don't you explain to the audience why Wendy Savino from the Bronx has a British accent?
Because I was born in England and I have an English accent, of course.
Right.
I came to America. I had been in the theatre since I was 12 professionally. I was appearing at the Moulin Rouge, and an American gentleman asked the management, I've seen that particular girl, can she come out and meet me? My answer was absolutely not. I'm here to entertain on stage, not your customers. He came back 3 times asking to meet me, and eventually the management persuaded me to go out and meet him, which I did.
And who was this gentleman's name?
That was Joseph Savino, who became my husband eventually. And I called him a loud, noisy American. That's the first time I met him.
So now, here on your wall, you have all these pictures. So what are we seeing in these pictures here? Like, what am I looking at here? This picture right here of you doing all sorts of contortions. What's the story?
I was about 12 there. I was professionally 12 appearing in the theatre. I did contortionist acts, and I'm always at the top of that one there. That's me on the top. There I'm about 12. Or maybe 8 or 10 in some of the younger ones.
So you were a performer in England.
Yes.
And you came over to America, why?
At the time, Joseph Savino was asking me to, and he said, you showed me a nice time in England when I was there with you. I was doing the nightclub circuit, and he came to the cabaret every night, and he said, I really enjoy your company. I enjoyed being in England with you. I made him a honorary member of all the clubs. You had to be a member of the clubs in those days. So I introduced him to the owners and he became an honorary member.
Wow, so he came out to England to see you.
That's when he came to England. Yes.
Right, right.
Yes, because I wasn't coming to America. This is about 3 months later.
Okay, so you guys get married and...
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I come over here to see if I like it first. And we didn't get married until I came here, after I'd been here a few years.
Now, you came to the Bronx first?
Yes, that's where he was living at the time.
That's where he was living. And what area of the Bronx was this?
Off 228th Street and White Plains Road, behind the police station there.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So, and that would be known as, I guess, Wakefield? Do you know the name?
Yes, I suppose so.
Interesting, okay. And so, what was the relationship like with your husband?
Perfect. I loved him very much, and I think he quite adored me. And we went on so many different holidays. He took me everywhere he went, all of his business meetings. And then, of course, once I was married and had children, I didn't go as often.
Right, right. And you guys stayed married until he died?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes.
when did your husband pass away?
2006.
Okay, I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Well, listen, we could have a 1,000,000-hour interview just talking about this amazing wall here, but we have a bigger story to get to, and this is where I'm going to hand it off to Mike Lorenzo. Mike, if you wouldn't mind just clipping that on your thing. And so now we want to deal with why we are in this room with you now today. If you wouldn't mind just telling for the audience, just the genesis of how we met, from your perspective.
From how I met you?
Yes.
You found me.
Right, we found you.
Yes.
The audience knows that we saw this particular, Mike and I saw this, Mike actually sent me this article here after he read the detective report that was in the Donna Lauria file, the first
not
Son
even
of
in
Sam
the right
shooting.
file, right?
Well, your
Somebody
shooting,
else's file, yes.
yeah, but they thought that your shooting was similar enough to the first official Son of Sam shooting that they included it in that. We read that. Mike found this, and the hairs stood up on the back of my neck reading this because I was like, this sounds like Berkowitz. I reached out to you. I called you. And then what happened once you got that call from me?
I was totally surprised. I quite nervous that someone had found me.
Now,
And
I'm sorry.
no, and I talked to my son about it, and is this a scam? He said, no, he knows whatever he's telling you is the truth. You knew all the particulars about my shooting. So that's why I decided to call you.
And now you had been saying for how long have you been telling the world that David Berkowitz shot you?
Since 1976.
Well,
77.
77, excuse
Since
me.
after the arrest.
Although I saw him when he shot me in 1976, so I knew what he looked like.
Right. So when he was arrested,
Yes, I said, that's him,
that was him.
that's him.
All right. So you've been saying this since 1977, and in fact, your son was telling us about how you actually, until fairly recently, were carrying in your purse
Still today,
to this day.
I carry that. I took it out of my purse to show you.
So what are we seeing here?
You're seeing my sketch of the man that shot me, and that's an image of him. It is exactly him, except he should have a slightly more heart-shaped face.
Mm-hmm.
That is a picture of him when he was caught, that was in the newspaper. My husband would send me the newspapers about him in England so that I was aware of everything that was going on.
Now, this is going to come up a little later when you describe the shooter, but I'm just curious, did you see any color photographs of David Berkowitz, or were they all black and white?
I saw a small one at the police station in England, in Dartford, Kent.
Was it color or black and white?
It was colour.
Okay, so
That's
we'll get to that a little later, but the initial pictures that you all saw of Berkowitz were black and white.
Black and white.
Okay. All right, Mike. Well, I basically have brought us up to the night of the shooting. Why don't you work here with Wendy, and let's figure out what happened.
Okay, Wendy. Just some questions going back to
Look at
the
him.
night of the shooting. Okay. Just basically, I know basically the crime scene, or we talked about what led up to the shooting, which is just a kind of nondescript dinner with your husband. Leading up, you were meeting your husband at the restaurant Nina's, and you parked in the back parking lot on, here's Boston Road, but it's Buke, correct?
Bauk.
I'm sorry, Bauk. The back parking lot, this is where the front door is on Boston Road. Here's Nina's, here's Bauk. This is the kitchen door. To give, there's a fence, I guess, what is this gonna go?
The fence is across here.
Right, okay,
No, I'm sorry.
yeah.
The fence is here. This is how you enter into the parking lot.
Husband's car's parked here. The husband's car was not a newer car, it's an older car that sometimes had engine problems. So the idea was they were going to you guys were going to the UK the following day, was it?
The next day.
The next day,
Next day.
to go for Easter vacation, because to
Yes,
meet your
with my
family and
English
surprise
family.
you, your husband, and your children.
My husband wasn't
Oh,
going.
you weren't going, but you and the boys were going.
Me and the boys.
Okay, so you were parked in the back parking lot, nose in, correct?
Yes.
How is the parking lot lit? Not well.
The parking lot was dark.
Was it
There
dark?
was no
Was it-
light back
okay.
there.
So,
So I just want to get an idea. She was parked in the back of the parking lot, nose in.
right.
So as far back as you could go in the parking
Yes,
lot?
I had a new car and I didn't want it to be hit as people came in and out.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you had a conversation with your husband, right, before you started up the car. You got in, and what did you see? You saw a car.
Next to my car was unbelievably another Jaguar. It looked just like mine, and they were very rare in those days.
Yeah, right.
So I got back out of the car and I called over the fence because I couldn't see over the fence. I knew my husband was still there waiting for me to leave the parking lot. And I called over, "You'll never believe it, Joe. You should see there's another Jag, exactly the same as mine, next to my car." And he retorted, "Wendy, would you please come home? You've got to pack. You're going to England tomorrow for a surprise visit at Easter with your English family."
Okay. So then he gets in his car.
He gets in his car and he pulls forward. He assumes
Right.
that I'm in mine and going out.
Right. So when you enter your car, you're in the process of going to be starting up your car. You happen to see or notice a male. Later, you identify him as David Berkowitz. He was behind like a dumpster, or what you would call
That's
a
the
skip.
word. I called it a skip, yeah.
Which all restaurants have, usually in the back when they're throwing out their garbage.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
Okay, let's get the location of that dumpster.
Okay, so the skip is going to be located along the wall towards the back of the
Yeah,
restaurant.
I could
correct?
see the front of it. It was down this side.
Okay, so it's more this way.
Yes.
And the front was accessed right here, so they could
Yes.
come out and just do their dumping there, and you're parked there. But you saw movement, and you look, and you see a white male. Now, you said you described him initially, I'm just going off of the reports that I pulled off the computer, that in one of the interviews, you said he looked Italian.
He was
And
typically Italian. Yes.
which means he was
He had dark curly hair.
black hair.
Yes, black hair. A widow's peak.
Yeah.
Sideburns. Blue eyes. Little bit of a rounded nose and a rosebud mouth, which sounds silly for a man.
What does that mean?
A rosebud mouth, it's kind of like that and like that.
Fuller lips.
Full lips.
Full lips, yeah.
Yes. And he was smiling at me.
Smiling. The eye, when somebody smiles, their eyes tend to radiate. Did they radiate to you? That's why you noticed they were very blue.
Probably when I saw that they were blue.
They were very.
Yes.
They were very blue.
They were very blue.
Even in the dark, you noticed that, like the
Yes.
smiling eyes.
Smiling
Okay,
eyes.
so then you see him. You're wondering, what's this guy doing? His hands were they out of his pockets or in his pockets? The best
They
you
were-
can recall.
Yeah, it's hard to recall. He was in a black leather jacket, but I don't remember seeing his hands.
Right.
I don't see him holding anything or his hands. So possibly in a pocket.
Right. So now your attention is you're going to be starting up your car. You're going to put on your seatbelt, I imagine.
I'm putting on my seatbelt when I see him again. I mean, I've seen him there. I'm not worried because I've locked my car doors. He's smiling. So what's the problem?
You thought he might even been an employee of Nina's, right? Maybe a dishwasher
I
or
thought
something?
he was a worker in Nina's
Yeah.
because he looked very Italian to me, with a suntan. I would have said he'd just come back from Florida. Typical Italian face, and he has the suntan of being in Florida. So I don't worry about him. I've got my car doors locked. I get my seatbelt from the left side. I'm pulling it over. I see he's still walking and smiling. I said, my car doors are locked. What can happen? And as I'm trying to put on my seatbelt, my chest explodes. And it just explodes. And it hurts. And then I put my arm up, my left arm up, hoping I would shield myself. And the next thing I know, I'm blind in my right eye. I didn't know then why I was blind. I didn't know that a bullet had gone in my right eye. I then, still trying to get the belt on, then I'm thinking, get out of the car. No, he shot you. I can see he shot you. It looks as if he put 2 fingers to the driver's side of the car to tap on the window and ask for directions. The next thing, I'm a balloon deflating.
Now, wait, the shots, were they very quick? Or were they spaced out?
Spaced out. I think they were spaced out because I became aware of each one
Right.
and what each bullet did to me. First one, left lung exploded. Second one, right eye is blind. Third one, I'm a balloon deflating. And I fell across the bucket seat, and I'm now laying with my head in the passenger seat. And he continues to shoot. He's now laughing, and he put 2 more bullets in my back from the left because I'm.
So contrary to what was reported in the news, which is never 100%, they said there was 5 shots, 3 hits, but you were hit 5 times.
My body has 5
There was
bullet
5
holes.
shots, and there was 5
bullet holes.
separate wounds.
5 bullets shot me. Yes.
Now, you still have a scar on your arm you showed us before.
Well, yeah. It looks rather like a vaccination.
It was easier to see farther away.
Right there. It's just-
Oh, I see. Yeah, right there. Wow.
And on your hand too, right there? Or was
Yeah,
it the
through
forearm?
my arm,
Through the
it
forearm?
went in
Through the wrist.
here.
Yeah.
and came out. I was wearing a watch, came out the other side of my arm there. You can see that's the out bullet.
Okay.
So you were shot 5 times, not 3.
5 times, 5 bullets, 5 in my body.
So after this happens, you never lost consciousness.
I did not.
Okay. Nobody came to your aid.
Nobody came at all. No, nobody.
Nobody.
If I had just laid there, I would have died. I
would have
could
bled
feel
out.
I was dying. I knew I was dying.
Was there anybody else in the parking lot? Any eyewitnesses? Anybody see anybody get into
It was
a
a
car?
dark parking lot and only me in it. Nobody was in it.
So how were the police called? Was there was no witnesses? So
No,
you
no
were
witnesses.
you were the one.
I got out of my own car.
Before you left, though, you were
Oh.
afraid that he was still there, correct?
I wasn't afraid he was coming around to the other side of the
Yes,
car
on the
because
side.
I'd been shot 3 times then. And my knowledge is that there's 5 bullets usually in a gun.
Well, it depends, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. that was what I thought. And so I knew he had 2 bullets. 3 are in me. And he walks around the back of my car and I think he's going to shoot me in the head because my head's over there. And then he shoots me again from where he was because I'm not sitting up looking at him.
Your head's
I
away,
have my
yeah.
head down and I'm pretending to be dead.
So there was definitely a gap in between the first shots and then those 2 kind of kill shots.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that shows that that it was not just rapid.
Right, it wasn't like
No,
It was more.
it was
Assess.
1, 2, 3, about that. There was a space in between each one. When he continued to shoot and I'm pretending to be dead, the next 2 came in my back more quickly. They were more quickly together. So I just laid there. I knew I couldn't get out of the car to escape him. He's standing next to the car. He'll have me before I can get out. If I try and climb over the bucket seat into the passenger car, he'd be quicker around the car than I can get in the passenger
And
seat.
he knows he's still alive.
Yeah,
If he sees you,
and
yeah.
yes, and I
so-
didn't want him
right.
to know I was alive, so I stayed still. I had of course I was blind in the right eye, and I had my left eye slightly open so I could peek out. But I couldn't see him anymore because he left the car, and I thought he's coming around, but instead, the parking lot is rough stones, but
Gravel.
that's it, it's gravel. And I hear his footsteps walking away from the car on the gravel. So I waited until I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. Thought I'd grab my handbag, as women do, or I'll take my car key, and then I said to myself, save yourself. You're going to die, but at least you will tell them what he looked like. So that's when I rolled out of my car. I crawled across the parking lot. I found the wall of the back of Nina's restaurant. I put my hands on the wall and I followed the wall around till I got to the corner. At that point, I'm leaving the parking lot and I'm thinking, is he still there? Don't look, you'll freeze in fear. Just go. If you're going to get anywhere, just go. So I followed the wall around the corner and I got to Nina's kitchen back door. And I walked into Nina's kitchen and all the people working there, the waiters, etc., cooks, chef, whatever, started throwing their pots and pans in the air and screaming. And I said to myself, I'm not getting any help here. I'm not staying here. So then I walked from the kitchen into the dining room and got just about the same response without things being thrown in the air. I asked somebody, would you help me please? I've just been shot. And they threw a tablecloth over my head. I pulled it off my head and I said, take my jewellery to the bartender and, would you help me please? I've just been shot. 2 tablecloths, 1, 2. Nobody came to help me. So I standing there and I know I'm going to fall down and somebody slides a wooden chair across a wooden floor. I grab the back of the wooden chair thinking that I'll turn it sideways and I'll sit down. But instead, the chair and I see my hand holding the wooden chair, and I went down
no power left.
onto the floor.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. You had your jewelry on still at this
I
point.
still
so
had
was
my
not
jewelry.
This was not a robbery.
No, I did think at one point, oh my God, he's going to touch me. He's going to take my jewelry. I had a diamond ring on that was a 4 carat. I had other stuff on, diamond earrings.
Brand new
I
car,
was-
nice clothing.
Yeah, I was wearing this, which my husband put around my neck when I had
were
my
wearing
son.
this?
I was wearing this.
Wow. My God.
So it wasn't a robbery, so we can take that motive out.
Now, did you lose consciousness at any time before the ambulance came?
No, I did not.
You were awake the whole time
Yes.
into Jacoby, getting worked on by the doctors immediately, right?
I started wavering in
Yes.
the ambulance.
Yeah, because you were blood loss, obviously.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was 0/40.
Was there any policemen in the ambulance with you?
There were more than me, and somebody said, have you got a blood type yet? And I said, I'm A2 positive. The nurse said, you're not taking her word for it, are you? And the other person said, it's better than nothing. She's 0/40.
Yeah, because they had to get the blood ready in the hospital
Yes,
for you.
so they gave me blood transfusions in the ambulance.
I just have one question. I want to just backtrack a little bit. I want you to please explain again for the audience what you noticed about him grinning, laughing, and his eyes. Please just repeat that again.
When I first saw him walking towards me, he looked non-violent. He didn't look
Non-threatening.
scary at all. I wasn't afraid when I saw him. He was smiling. His eyes were blue. He was clean, clean shaven, except for the sideburns. And I saw him walking towards me and he was smiling. Once he started shooting me, I did look back and he is now laughing whilst shooting me.
So, your first interaction, I know it was a long time ago and it was a very traumatic event. The first interaction where police were trying to, from what I saw from the reports that we have, is that you did talk to somebody that night of the shooting to give the description, providing the sketch. Was
That was done
on
in the
same night?
hospital.
Was that the same night or the next
No,
night?
no, it
Next
was
day?
about,
Or a couple
I
days
was
later?
shot on April the
Ninth.
9th. and that you will see the
5/5/76. So this is a month later, and your recollection is still this
You're
good.
never gonna forget somebody shoots you. Never. That'll be actually all those girls in the Bronx. I mean, that's why, like, when all these people talk about IDs, every single victim of David Berkowitz, post-arrest or at an arrest said, that's him immediately. There was no like, oh, I don't know if that's the guy.
Just like Wendy.
Every single person who was an actual victim, like somebody who was close and personal with this guy, who was shot by this guy, you're never going to forget that. It's going to be etched in your brain forever.
oh,
So it doesn't surprise me that when she said, that's him. That's him.
Did he start talking to you or anything?
never said
No
a word.
words.
He
So,
just smiled and then laughed.
okay, so this was during the sketch, which is 5/5/76, which is almost a little bit before a month, more like 3 weeks. Prior to this, were you interviewed by any detectives prior to this sketch?
No.
Or was it around the same time?
I don't remember anybody interviewing me until they came to take this sketch of what he looked like.
Once you were admitted after the emergency room, were you still in, how long
I
were
was
you?
in intensive care
For how long?
in the ICU from April the 9th through May the 25th
The whole time in ICU.
in the ICU.
And could you talk?
No, I could not talk. I could not see. When I first woke up, I couldn't breathe. And I'm saying, why can't I breathe? And there was nobody next to me. I couldn't see. Glass in one eye, bullet in the other eye, and I'm trying to breathe, and I can't. And then I realise something is breathing for me. So I just relaxed and waited until whatever it was took over.
Right.
And then I was fine because it was the machine was breathing for
You were
me.
intubated.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mike, I interrupted. You were about to ask her something?
Not intubated, I had a
Yeah.
tracheostomy. Is that intubated?
I don't know the exact procedure. I could see the tracheotomy scars.
That was a
there, yeah.
tracheostomy, so that
So
was,
one of the bullets that entered you, besides, was in the throat. You had a bullet lodged in by
I
your
had a
spine.
bullet lodged in the back of my neck. It was lodged in the spine and couldn't be removed because it possibly would have paralysed me. I didn't have that removed for about a year after I was shot because it moved itself around to the front of me and I could feel, I didn't know what it was, but I could feel something in my throat. And I went to a doctor in England to ask what it was. I thought it was a piece of my windpipe that had been shot off. And you know, it's
A piece of
moving.
bone, yeah.
And it was a bullet in the front of my throat. And it had started up here. And it was moving down. And I thought, whatever it is, I want it out before they have to open my rib cage because it's sinking.
You can feel it.
Yeah, I could feel it moving.
So when they removed it, you showed us this today. They gave it to you in the hospital.
Yes, in a London hospital, Westminster Hospital.
And this is a bullet, which is, to be honest with you, as far as bullets go, it really maintained its shape.
Can we take it out? Or is that not advisable?
I'm sure it's been handled before.
Oh, I
right?
think so. Yeah, I'm sure I've
A lot of
handled
people
it.
have touched it, right?
One time I thought covering in gold
No, because we...
would have.
So now, real quick, because this says Brenda Savino. Brenda's your real name, your
Brenda
official name?
is my given name.
Okay.
I was in the theatre and they had another Brenda.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that we're taught that that's coming from the same person. Brenda is you.
Yes.
Wow. Mike, can you do any analysis on this bullet?
It's a smaller caliber bullet. It's bigger than a 22. It's not as big as a 44, obviously. It's either 38, 32, or 380. But I'm not a ballistics guy, but I'd had to, if you don't mind, can I retain this until I get it? I'm going to get back to you, but I want somebody to just tell me
Yes.
the caliber.
Yes, you may take it, but you may bring it back,
We're going to
please.
bring this back.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I wish if I had known that you had this, I would have brought up a guy who knows ballistics. But I'm glad it's okay.
I wanted it to be a
Surprises are always
surprise
better.
for you.
Yes, but, well, that's a hell of a token. But in a lot of ways, thank God it came out. You know, all jokes aside, that they eventually got it out of you because
Yes.
it could have created even more serious
Yes.
health issues down the road. Okay, so just to go in perspective, me and Manny have done videos even before meeting you, and we wanted to. The reason that really I felt that it was Berkowitz, I have my own preconceived beliefs that he was doing major crimes before he was known as the 44 killer. Okay. But when I saw that the detective from your case forwarded it to the investigating detectives of the Loria case, at this time period, which we've discussed me and Manny in prior videos, and which you know, there was no things about Son of Sam or 44 killer.
No.
So it's still what we do as detectives. We say, oh, that looks similar to my case, and they forward along saying, you know what, I had something similar in April with my victim around the same time of night. Not a robbery, not a rape, not a sex crime. No motive. Apparently no motive. White male, basically same description, 5'9", a little bit stocky, dark hair,
Curly hair.
and motiveless shooting. That's why he forwarded it to them.
Oh.
That's why this file is in the file for Son of Sam victim
Right.
Donna Loria. Your file.
Oh.
This is your police report. It's in the file for Donna Loria, and your sketch was in the file for Donna Loria, the first official Son of Sam victim, because the police thought that it was similar enough to include in
Oh,
the
I
two.
know, I see.
That's why we initially got interested in this.
So, just to do some corrections, five shots, 5 hits.
Yes.
Okay. As far as you know, it could have even been more shots. You're not there counting in your head with
No.
a clicker, so it might even been 6 shots, 7 shots, but you were definitely hit
I
five
felt
times.
5 bullets.
5 bullets.
Do you know?
you-
Sorry, go. Mike, go ahead.
You heard the footsteps on the gravel, but there was no other witnesses screaming or anything like that in the parking lot. The only way anybody knew what had happened to you is when you, thank God, were strong enough and brave enough to go back into that restaurant and alert these people for help.
Yes.
So there's nobody else outside. There's no bystander going to help you. And there was no sound. When he was walking, you never heard like a car door open, close, and screech off.
No, I was concentrated on getting out of the car.
Right,
Once I did not hear his feet anymore.
right.
I didn't hear anything.
You didn't hear like a car peeling out or anything like that.
No.
Did any detectives ever tell you that there were eyewitnesses to this, or that they saw people get in a car and drive away with other people?
No. No.
Okay, so at this point, you were really afraid because, again, if it was some robbery attempt or, God forbid, sexual attack, it still would have been horrible. But because it was so random and you were so afraid, and they actually put, in 1976, they put the victim's address, your name and address,
Oh, in these, yeah.
including your husband's work address,
Yes.
in the paper. So you were rightfully terrified.
He
Obviously,
could find me any time. He
find
has
you
my
at-
home address.
right.
He has my husband's office address.
again, to put this in perspective, there was no idea about a 44 killer. You never said, "Oh, I might be a victim of 44 killer,"
No.
because this was months before the 44 killer, almost a year before the 44 killer
Correct.
even became known to everybody.
Exactly.
Never mind in April 1976.
The first time they ever made a connection that there was one guy doing it was in February of 77 after Voskerichian.
Almost a year.
Almost a year.
Yeah. So.
So you had no idea, nobody had any idea. Did they investigate? Do you want to talk about this? But did they?
Yeah,
Okay, go
because, well, there was no police follow-up with you other than the sketch. They didn't show you in Jacoby. They never brought you what they call a mugshot book, which is like a big photo album
No.
to scan through and all this.
No.
You were so afraid. The timeline, you enter on the 9th, you leave on the 25th of May, you're discharged from the hospital.
Yes.
You went home?
No. I wasn't going to stay in America as long as this man was wherever he was. I mean, I didn't know he was. Everybody had no reason for it to be done. And it was just, no, I refused to stay in America. I went to England.
Right. To backtrack from the night of the shooting, the next day, you and your boys, your two sons, had already booked a trip to England to surprise your family and spend Easter with your British family.
Yes, that's
Correct?
so.
Your
Yes.
husband wasn't going to go,
No.
but
No.
you were going to go with your sons.
Yes,
So, and that was supposed to be on the 10th of April.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, the next day.
So when you got out of where were your sons after the shooting?
I'm told I went to the intensive care unit.
Right.
My husband went home. I picked up my children and took them to my his parents' home. They went to their grandmother and grandfather that night.
Where was that?
Immediately in the Bronx on
In the
Colden Avenue.
Okay.
And I don't know any of this because I'm out
Yeah, of course not. Yeah.
on a respirator. But they actually were spent that one night there. Then the next day, their grandparents and the children were flown down to Florida, and they lived under a different name, incognito. And because if he's looking to shoot the Savinos, there's two little ones you can shoot. You know, we couldn't leave them around.
Right.
So after, I think they were about 3 or 4 months in September, that's it, they came to England in time to go to school. That's how they came in September.
To enroll in school.
To enroll in school.
Was this fear based on the unknown, or did you think that your husband, your sons would be too little? Did your husbands think that it was maybe aimed at him?
No.
Aimed at you?
No. What,
So
there was
it's
no
basically
reason.
just to
What?
be right, just to be cautious. Like, listen, we don't know. The police aren't telling us anything. It makes no sense that my wife was, almost killed.
Yes.
Our names in the paper, or it's kind of out there, and this guy is roaming free. Who did this? So, as the head of the household, I'm going to make sure I can take care of myself, but I'm going to make sure my wife and my children are safe. Get the kids down to Florida, even while you're recuperating. Was there a again? I know you were out of it. I don't know, Jay. I don't know if you know this. You're probably too young. Was there a police guard while your mother was in the hospital?
I didn't see one.
Well, you wouldn't have, dear. They would have been outside the room. Were you in a solitary room?
No, I was in a room with 4 beds, and I saw 3 people die.
So you were not on. So you were. I've been in Jacoby. I know the layout. So
I'm up
you
in
were
the ICU.
with
intensive
3
care
other people.
unit.
So there was 4 of you guys in there,
Yes?
and no police there,
No,
no guard.
no.
From what I understand, and again, remember I was 8 years old.
Yeah, right. Of course.
There was, when I woke up the next day, she was shot April 9th, so it was April 10th. We woke up at my grandparents' house, and my memory is just that there were police and men there.
Outside your parents.
Outside
your grandparents.
On Morris Park in the Bronx. And my father, she was in the hospital. Obviously, we don't know what happened. We're kids. And my father sat me and my brother, who's here also, down at the kitchen table and said, "Where do you guys want to go?" And we were kids, so we said Disney. And they sent us to Florida, and we lived down there until, as I was down there as Jason Tannenbaum until September. I was a Jewish kid for a year.
Who came up with the name Tannenbaum?
Did you get by Memphis?
Yeah, it was
Too young.
The name of the house. It was the Tannenbaum's house, and it was a friend of my father. So they called us.
Yeah, smart.
And we went down there, and I think that was just out of an abundance of caution.
Of course.
Because nobody knew what was going on. We remember at the time they couldn't put mugshots in front of my mother because she had 8 pieces of glass in one eye, bullet hole in the other eye. She was completely blind and on a respirator, basically writing stuff, trying to fight for her life. So there was no way for her to even look at pictures at that time. And me, my brother, my grandparents went down to Florida and stayed there until she was healthy enough to have her kids back. And then she wanted us in England because we still didn't know who was doing the shooting or had done the shooting. Son of Sam wasn't even a thing. And we were living in England hiding.
Yeah.
I
So-
also remember a detective saying one time, "Why do you think your husband is going to give you your children?" I said, "Because they're mine and I love them." "Well, why should he give them to you?" I said, "Because he knows I need them and I love them,
Where was this said?
in Jacoby. So
They didn't want
obviously
her to
there's
leave.
another time.
They didn't want her to leave. They were trying to convince her to stay. They said they could protect her. That's what she's.
Yes,
My father and the police department were saying, we can protect you, please, you have to stay. And my mother insisted on leaving, and that's why. There might have been some contentious.
Because again, all of
conversation.
this is because you just have no clue. There's no, I mean, let's just put it out there. Obviously, the cops might have thought that someone was after your dad, or maybe this was a botched mob hit. But
they thought I saw something. That's what they said. You saw something and you don't know what you saw.
You mean a witness to another crime?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
That
yes,
they were trying to rub you out because you were a witness to another crime.
exactly.
Right.
They thought
is
I
that
saw.
true?
No, I do think they thought, they said it to me. You
Right, but
must
you
have
w-
seen something and you've been
you shouldn't have
shot
seen.
because of it.
But that's not true. You didn't see anything that you
No.
shouldn't have seen.
Absolutely not. That was one of their theories.
These are all theories prior to the Son of Sam phenomenon actually taking place.
Correct.
So this is what the police are
Right, yeah,
trying to run down.
It's very hard. The hardest thing is what they call a stranger murder. There's most unsolved murders are stranger murders, meaning there's no motive. There's usually in most murders to some relation, even if it's robber victim.
Right.
But when there's basically a motiveless crime like this, then any possibility is open for suggestion, and the avenues have to be investigated. The robberies and these things are out because there was no words spoken, there was no attempt to grab jewelry. So it kind of narrows their scope of where they're going to go investigative.
It only leaves the husband.
I said that too.
Right.
There was two possibilities. So basically, just for a time frame, just get back on track. Soon as you're out and up and ready to go, you want out.
I went out in a wheelchair.
But you want out of the States. You're
I
not
want
going
out
back.
of
You're not
America.
going back to.
I'm not coming back to New York.
I mean, you're a very attractive woman, still are.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. But at that time, were you a housewife, or did
Yes.
you work at all, or you
No.
just raised the children?
I just had the
Wh-
children.
wh-
They were enough
Did you
work.
ever have an issue? Did you ever have an issue being an attractive woman, or men bothering you, stalking you, sending you any lewd phone calls or anything like that prior to this?
No.
When you were in the theater, Mom?
Oh,
No,
all the time.
Immediately prior to the
Oh,
shooting.
New York specific.
No.
When you were where were you guys in Pelham at this time?
Palomar, yeah.
Pelham,
I lived
which is
in
nice,
Pelham.
nice kind of quiet, safe area.
Yep.
Took
those are okay.
beautiful-
So there was no was there any attempted break-ins in your home during this time?
Yes. We had gotten robbed like 6 times.
No, it sounds like it. I think it was two.
Oh, 2 times. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
That's when we
Burglaries?
got a burglar alarm.
We got a burglar alarm. We got robbed twice in Pelham.
Where
When?
my
What
house
years?
was in Pelham Manor,
Years before.
How long before?
the back of the garden led to the woods that are the back of the golf course on Split Rock.
Easy access, yeah,
so
yeah.
So we
There
didn't
was a
establish
road-
when these robberies took place.
Years before.
Years before.
Years
okay.
yeah, oh yes.
Years before. It wasn't immediately before.
Well-
It was years before.
The bad guys go to where the nice stuff is.
Well, now
That's
Berkowitz.
exactly what they told me. I said, why they come to me? Because you'll have
Because you got the good stuff.
Now,
Yeah.
while you're in Pelham Manor, living in Pelham Manor, Berkowitz is briefly, but still living in New Rochelle.
That's why I asked.
Right.
Just-
so what
just
is
see
your
if
thought
there's-
pattern here?
Oh.
Well, I just want to know because she's an attractive woman. Berkowitz at one time lived in New Rochelle right around the time of your shooting. And I just want to know, I also have a belief that sometimes it wasn't as random as people made it out to be. Every one of his victims, female, were very attractive women. And he obviously was a guy who couldn't get attractive women, so that's why he had such, no, I'm serious. That's why he had such hatred. And he focuses his hatred on the unattainable, which are good-looking women. So the reason I ask you that is maybe, I'm not saying that, I don't want to put this in your head. I was always want to know because of the proximity. He lived in New Rochelle, you lived in Pelham.
It's
But-
just,
Very close to each
Straight
other.
up the road.
It's not far away.
no.
Could he have seen you before this incident and stalk you? That's the question we have. We don't know.
Would
I
you
don't
walk?
know.
Were you a jogger or a walker, or you just
No.
you were naturally fit from the theater? So
Yes.
you could
I do handstands and cartwheels in the
right,
car.
right. You don't have to join Jack LaLanne, right? But okay. Let's get back to seriousness. So I want to go back
Mike,
to.
if I might, along those lines, that night, wasn't there somebody you were told sitting in the restaurant watching you?
Yes. I was told there was a young man over there. I'm sitting at this table with my husband in a group of round tables. Over there they have on the wall like a long bench, and I think they were more oblong tables. He was over there, I was told, and he was staring at me all night.
Any description of this gentleman?
I didn't get it, they didn't tell me, no. I have no idea.
Now, that was in a bar area, bar stool area, or just tables?
Tables. It's
you gotta be-
tables against the wall.
Okay.
The bar is
I'm
over
not saying
here.
it's not related, but because you know, you're posh, you're dressed nicely, you're an attractive woman, it would be rude, but I'm not saying that was the shooter. It doesn't really, go ahead.
Right.
I will say this, you're right. We can't say or determine that it's the shooter in any way.
Right.
However, the person that told my mother this years later was Nina, was
Yeah.
I think the owner of the restaurant, who said he knew everyone in the restaurant except this gentleman.
Except what?
Except that gentleman,
woman was sitting over
whoever the
there.
guy was sitting over there. I knew everybody else in the restaurant, but I don't know who that was. And that's the same night she was shot.
But this man was sitting there eating?
I don't know.
It's too, right
You
now.
would have to have
right
something
now,
else. He'd look odd sitting
I'm
at
not
a
saying
table.
that there's no credence to that. It's possible.
I don't know.
Anything's possible. It just doesn't fit what Berkowitz
Would do.
would do.
Yeah.
Not from what I've seen in previous reports, although he might have been at Peachtree with Lauria.
With Lauria.
So it could very well have been him, and he was kind of in that area. He would go out. So let's leave that for a possibility, but nothing definitive.
The other thought I had, I met my husband in Gun Hill Manor. He was in there already.
I wanted to bring.
I come later in a car on my own, so I walk in alone. He's around Co-op City, Gun Hill Road. He supposedly worked in the post office on Gun Hill Road. Mm-hmm. That's what I was told.
No, he was on Grand Concourse, 149th Street.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
that's not him.
Yeah.
So I thought that maybe from the Co-op City, Gun Hill Road and Gun Hill Road Diner, they are in that
Yeah,
area.
it's-
And I left there alone. I left the Gun Hill Road alone in my own car, the Jag. He was not in the Gun Hill Manor, the diner.
Right.
I doubt that he came in to just look at me, you know. But as we left, I walked to my car, which was in a different place to my husband's car, and we both drove separately up Gun Hill Road to Eastchester Road,
To Nina's.
and then turned left on Boston Post Road to Nina's. We may have gone the Balk, I don't
Right.
know. We could have gone the back road.
So the Gun Hill Road place was just a place to grab a drink because your husband was there already doing an interview?
Yes,
With,
he used to write you don't have to put this in.
No, we're
He
putting
used
it
to
in.
write
Column.
a column for Bronx News.
Where I Stand was the name of the column.
Okay.
So he
So
was meeting with
there's
the
a possibility,
owner
I
of...
mean, just because of the proximity to Co-op City, I mean, we're not talking Scarsdale and Brooklyn, you know?
No,
they're
it's
all
all
within
within
kind of
close.
same geographical area.
But that's too speculative to even...
Too speculative.
Way too speculative.
But, you know, as a victim, she's wondering, where did
Where
this
this
person
guy
pick
see me?
up
Where
from?
did he see
You never
me?
know.
Right. Listen, we have to remember where we were. I need to change batteries.
All right.
We were at Berkowitz, possibly stalking you that night. The possibility. Okay, we're gonna change batteries.
I want a nosh on one of those yellow things.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, we're back here after the battery change, and we were just discussing the possibility that Berkowitz might have stalked Wendy, but rather speculative. So we're kind of just leaving it there for now. And so, Wendy, you're out of the hospital, and you don't know who did this. You have no idea, no motive. Nobody has been a suspect. And so you end up in England, and then let's kind of take up the story from England.
Okay, so you went to England, again, just timeline, the boys get sent down to Florida, you go May 25th, 1976.
Yes,
Okay, and you're established with family over there in Kent, correct?
Kent,
yeah.
yes.
And not really paying attention to the news, still in a state of fear,
absolutely.
but still in contact with your husband, obviously,
course.
and your sons. Were you recuperating? How were you physically when you were there?
Very weak.
What did you do to recuperate, if you don't mind me asking? Just rest and
Yes,
thank God you were in good physical condition prior to this.
that's what I was
Probably
told
helped,
in Jacoby in
Yeah.
the ICU. Your beautiful large lungs saved you.
Yeah.
And those large
you're
lungs were
athletic,
from
yeah.
doing
Athlete.
trapeze acts and a
Yeah,
contortionist.
athlete. Probably
Yeah,
even your
very
probably
healthy.
even your muscle structure helped you
Yes,
because you have dense muscles. So
yes.
So you're there recuperating, still in a state of fear. Yet, again, I'm not asking you because you probably were just looking to put this behind you, make sure that your kids are safe. Did your husband ever tell you, oh, the police have been asking, they want to show you more pictures, or the police might have a suspect, anything like that during this time?
No.
No. Okay, but at one point, I asked you this before about the mugshots, and you said at one time you were shown pictures, but that was much down,
must be after-
much down the road. I asked you about even before Son of Sam. So from the period of 4/9/76 until, what was it, August 77, he was arrested?
August 10th.
August 10th, 1977. Was there any contact between you and any member of the NYPD regarding your shooting? After Jacoby, I'm sorry, not
After
4/9. 'cause
Jacoby
we
and
know you did
before
this thing, so-
he's caught.
Before he's
Yeah.
caught.
I was asked by the Dartford police, the police force where I was born, got a message through to my brother-in-law who I was living with, because he too was a policeman, and requested that I come to the police station where I was born, and they want to come and interview me.
UK police or are you NYPD?
When they wanted to just talk to me, they said they told them they wanted to talk to me, and I went to the police station. That man supposedly was from the United States. What do you call it?
Embassy?
Embassy.
Is that
the
how
word.
he introduced himself? He didn't say, I'm Detective Lorenzo from the New York Police Department. I'm Detective Grossman. Did he use his title?
No, I went into the detective inspector's office. He was not there. When later the door opened and this man walked in, and he said to me, "Wendy Savino," that's all he said. "Wendy Savino?" I said, "Yes." I put my right hand out to shake hands, because that's what we do, and he slapped up a subpoena in my hand. The inspector in whose office I was said, "You said you were coming here to talk to her."
What was this man's name?
Detective Inspector Bernard Swift. And he said, "Don't you ever do that in my office
He's
again."
speaking to this American man.
Right, that's right.
Was the American man by himself, or was he?
He was
with
all by
anybody?
himself.
All by himself.
All by himself, quite a short little man, I remember that. And the inspector said, "Don't you dare do that in my office. You don't defile my office." He grabbed him by the back of his collar and the bottom and the top of his trousers, picked him up and threw him physically out of his office.
God, I used to love doing that.
Do we know what that subpoena was about, though?
Yes, the subpoena was from Mario Morona, telling me that I must come back to New York. They need me, they want me, they'll take care of me, they'll give me a guard, keep me safe, and they want me to testify. And if I refuse, which I did, I said, "I am not coming back to New York until he's behind bars." I didn't fight this hard to do.
So at this time, though, this was 1977. It was probably around 76 when this incident happened, or 77. Was it prior to David Berkowitz being arrested?
Oh, no. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yes, it's prior to
So it had
him
nothing
being
to do-
arrested,
it had
because
nothing
I'm
to do with the
still living
Berkowitz
at my
case.
sister's
Yeah.
alone. The children aren't back and aren't coming to England yet.
Okay, so I want to establish the subpoena incident took place before the Berkowitz arrest. Are we all?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so then what was it about?
It was telling me, he was subpoenaing me to come back to America to be questioned in reference to what happened to me. I refused to come. I refused. I said I will not. And so he threatened to take away my American citizenship because I'm born English. My 2 children I had in America, they're American. He was going to renounce their citizenship, and I would never be allowed to come back to America again.
But they didn't tell you that they had found a suspect and that you were there to testify against a suspect in your shooting?
No, they had not said anything about him, just that they wanted me back in the Bronx.
Okay.
Was this before or after the bullet was taken out of your throat? If you remember.
It's before,
It was before.
yes. Yes, because it was in the back of my neck.
Yeah.
I
It was
wonder if
lodged.
this was during the Son of Sam spree when they were finally realizing that there was a killer going around, and then they thought that maybe she was a victim. No, you
No,
don't think so?
no. Grand jury's a fact-finding mission.
Ah,
They're still in the process of, if it's 76, they're really early on in the process of even establishing
what happened?
connection
So they just
between
wanted her-
ballistics. I think, because initially what we said, after your shooting, there was only 2 possibilities or what I would have thought were only 2 possibilities in the shooting of you, which was random or it was a hit. So, an attempted murder on your life by a contracted killer. So, I'm not condoning if they went down that road, but I can understand it. So if they're at wit's end, and because your husband was political, your husband had some political
Yes.
status within the Bronx and New York City area.
Yes.
So with that, and unfortunately because he was Italian, they're always going to think maybe this was a mob-connected thing. And what they do is they panel a grand jury and they basically just subpoena anybody they think might have access to it. But obviously it never went anywhere.
Right, because they never.
Number one, what would you have had to offer? I mean, I'm just thinking as an investigator or an attorney, or I'm going to subpoena the victim in this case. But what could she offer? She was
beyond what she already gave.
she was not a witness to a violent crime or any criminal activity before this incident,
Right.
which would make her a possible target for witness elimination. She was not involved in any kind of criminal conspiracy. She was a housewife. So I think it was just they were going to subpoena everybody they could. I don't know if it was to target her husband thing or just they were at wit's end. They just figured,
Right.
let's
get her
let's
back
get it
here
back.
and
But I understand why you didn't do it.
Can we just backtrack to one thing because we did not we talked about this before we started filming. What hand did he use to shoot you?
Right.
Okay, because we didn't get
Right
that on
handed.
film.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
one hand and not with the support.
And
grip.
not with 2
Just
hands
one,
clasped.
right.
No.
One hand, right hand.
One hand, right hand, directly. I mean, this hand directly at my head.
Okay, that's
Okay.
important to get in there.
So they send over this subpoena, and you don't
Right.
you don't respond to it.
And my husband has to fight it. He had to pay to get. He fought that subpoena.
Because they subpoenaed him as well back here in New York.
Oh,
Did they, or
Did
they
they
were fighting
subpoena
you?
only me. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
No, from what I understand, the subpoena, when they gave her the subpoena, they said that we were still in Florida. She was in England living with my aunt. And they said they were never going to let us leave the country. We were going to be, she was never
Who
going to
is who is they?
I don't know, whoever gave her the subpoena. I'm assuming it was the district attorney's office.
and
was
what-
upset.
I
Let me see
assume
the
it's
subpoena.
Mario Marola.
And I'm assuming that the embassy, to try and enforce the subpoena, made threatening statements that they were going to take away her citizenship and she'd never see her kids.
I
and-
find that very unusual that
I-
somebody in a diplomatic status would be basically what they're doing is they're acting as an agent for the DA.
So the attorney my father had to hire fought the extradition subpoena
Yeah.
of my mother. Not anything for himself. He was fighting
Right,
the
the
subpoena
extradition subpoena.
that she not be forced to be extradited. Because obviously in an extradition
My,
country...
my point of being is this. I find it unusual that NYPD, who has the resources and has a serious crime, would not send over at least one detective to do it. That they would use a person from an embassy. If I'm a diplomat in a foreign country, they must have part of it's the between the countries.
Yeah.
So that's actually very combative, especially with our closest ally, which is England.
Right.
So to me, that sounds like it was either a DA investigator who did that, who was the person who slapped the subpoena on you. Also for proof, because say you're going to fight it later on, then they're going to have to fly this guy from the embassy over to New York court to
Right.
testify that he was the one who served the subpoena.
Right. So it was
It
most
just doesn't
likely-
make sense.
Right.
They sent over either an agent from the Bronx DA or an actual cop.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
it was a process server or an ADA or something from Marola's office. It must have been.
Okay. So after the, now I'm going to
He
go.
had an American accent.
It was an American guy. We're just trying, and it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm just trying to like that the part of it being an actual diplomat or a person from the U.S. embassy, I find very unlikely. But I could see a DA investigator doing it,
Right.
and I
And they
could
could
see
lie
them.
too. They could just say I'm from the embassy rather than the DA.
They
Aren't
could
aren't
they
cops
could have,
allowed
but
to
and
lie?
that's why this guy probably responded like that, because he's protecting this woman who's a British-born citizen and his office, which again that's
In his office,
yeah,
yes.
it was very rude.
I think the detective in England took it personally because
Of course he did. I would.
Who knows
Yeah.
what he was told? Maybe he was told this is somebody from
Yeah,
the
probably
embassy.
BS them. They bullshit
And-
him.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that he was from the DA's office, hit her with a subpoena, you've been served, and that's why he was escorted out of the office. So
Yeah, they try to backdoor it. Maybe I don't know. I don't think it's as far as this goes. It's not
not the most
that
important.
relevant.
it was
yeah.
also prior to any of the son. There was no son of
and that
Sam.
was
Son of
also
Sam, right.
that was also in November of '76,
Right.
when this incident happened. So
That's before the third Son of Sam incident takes place. They haven't even connected
yes,
any of the
SOS
shootings
not even on the radar.
You're still living with Aunt Doreen.
I'm still living with Aunt Doreen, and I leave there in September of '76 to go live in Mepham Green. So it's don't know what
Before September
November
of
is.
'76.
So
Yes.
it was before September. of
Before
76.
September.
So
My
it's-
son's
so it's-
was.
So they weren't investigating Son of Sam. They weren't investigating any other
They
connected
just-
shootings. This was
The name Son of Sam wasn't even invented
wasn't even
yet.
invented yet, yeah.
So
No,
But-
he was arrested just after Elvis Presley died.
right.
He took Presley. Elvis Presley took him off the front
So I
page.
kind of want to move to there, unless to the aftermath, unless you want to bring up.
well, that was
anything
my
else.
so. Prior to Son of Sam being arrested, you had absolutely no, even after the bullet was removed from your throat, you had no contact with any agent, any investigator from New York City.
None at all.
Zero.
Zero.
Now, you did mention earlier to Manny, at some point you did see a color photograph of David Berkowitz. Was that a one-on-one photograph, or was it in what they call a six-pack, a photo array?
I don't know what he had them in, but the detective inspector put them down in front of me.
But it wasn't just one singular photo of one person?
No, I thought it was 10, but
Okay.
it
been.
could have been less. I was in such. And then when I saw him, I saw his face.
So you looked at all of them, but you went right to the man who did it, which was...
I went directly to David Berkowitz.
So this was obviously after the arrest. They showed you pictures, and Berkowitz's photo was in that array of photographs.
Yes, yes,
And you picked Berkowitz out.
immediately.
And then what happens?
I have no idea. I believe the detective inspector sent them back to Mario Marola. I believe that's where they came from. And he sent it back and he didn't hear a thing.
Now, I'm a little confused. Is this photo array taking place in England?
Yeah.
In England, in the
Swift, right?
Detective Inspector Swift's office, where also I was told, same office that the man came and slapped me with a subpoena.
But this was an official identified agent of the Bronx DA coming to you?
He had the pictures himself. There was only the detective inspector and I.
It was
in the room.
The photo array was with the English detective. The
Yes.
pictures were sent to England.
Sent from New York to England.
To England.
So the photo array, this is coming after the arrest of Berkowitz. You get a photo array, and Berkowitz's picture is in there, and what happens?
Yes, as he puts them down, I'm like, no, 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 no. And he put down David Berkowitz. I said, that's him. No, take your time. Take your time. Be sure. Is the detective is saying to me, please make sure. I said, no, that's him. He said, I wish I had more witnesses like you.
Did you have to sign that photo?
No,
Did they take a statement that you had to sign after that?
Nope.
A witness identification statement? There might be different procedures over there.
So, because you had mentioned that you noticed David Berkowitz's the shooter's blue eyes. I just want to establish that that wasn't after seeing a picture of his blue eyes.
Oh, no, no. No, I hadn't seen anything. I was,
And most of the pictures that came out in the media were black and white. You couldn't
Yes.
tell he had blue eyes, really.
right. It was in, I suppose, when I gave my story in Jacoby Hospital. That's when I would describe all of that. That's when I did this,
Drawing. That's when you
Sketch.
did this sketch.
yes.
Right, which is basically a spitting image of David Berkowitz minus a little fatter face, but you know, that's not a big deal.
Yes, it should be heart-shaped instead of square jaw.
So I'm just a little bit confused in the sense that at the Bronx DA, so they get a witness that says that it was Berkowitz who shot her. This is all official. This is a Bronx DA coming to see, sending you the information. So there should be a record of this somewhere in existence. And the Bronx DA gets your statement that Berkowitz did it,
Yes,
and they proceeded to do nothing.
absolutely nothing.
And did you hear anything about this ever again in your life from any official law enforcement?
No.
Do you have any other questions? Because I want to just ask. I just want to get to the social aftermath, the carrying of this in the wallet and all that. Do you have any other questions on this?
No.
So then, can I have the mic just so it's like perfect quality sound?
Oh, I would.
Thanks. No, save it. Keep it, because you're still talking. I just want it for me. Keep it on. Don't
Is
touch
it right?
It's fine. Yeah. So, Wendy, then you're basically then ignored by the Bronx DA. You had told them specifically that David Berkowitz shot you.
Yes.
Nothing happens. And then how do you resume your life? Like, what goes on? Like, talk about this envelope that I'm seeing here that says SOS on it. What is this?
Sam.
But what is this?
That is the envelope that I carry these. I carried my sketch in there at first alone. That was the man that shot me. And I carried it because most people say, how do you know? Because I was there. I saw him.
So you were carrying this alone before
I've been
Berkowitz was
carrying
arrested?
this since I was shot.
You've been carrying it since you returned in.
No, I was carrying it in England too.
Oh, okay.
And then once he was arrested, then
I
you
still carried
added these to the mix.
Yes.
So
I
you've
added
been-
this.
And this is a very old piece of paper. This, as you can tell, so you were actually going around to people all these decades and telling people that you were shot by David Berkowitz, and nobody did anything or was
Nobody
interested
did
at all.
anything at all.
I have one question though.
Please.
Who was collecting these papers if you were in England?
My husband was sending them to me and he was collecting them himself.
Really?
He collected, I've got a whole box full.
Yeah. Look at all these.
Now,
My father worked the case and I don't think had
was he collecting them because he thought that this was involved? That this guy who was going around shooting this shot you? Like, why was he collecting these?
Because he had seen this and that he was told that, well, we thought it was David Berkowitz. We thought it was this man. And then when we saw his picture there,
Right.
or even before we saw it, he started collecting the articles on Son of Sam.
Well, he also was a politician in the Bronx area where the girls were getting shot.
Absolutely.
So he was,
Yes, he was probably.
It's not like he was living in Seattle. These shootings were happening in his backyard.
Wow, this is some vintage. These are some seriously vintage. I mean, I don't even want to touch them. They're
I
falling
probably
apart.
got Donna Laurie in there. Because
And Donna Lauria's
the
headline sounds just like yours. A girl shot, motive elusive, unknown killer. Wow. Here. This is Valentina Suriani.
yes, poor darling.
That happened very close to where you were shot.
No, she was out in Queens.
No. Valentina Suriani was Hutchinson River
right.
Parkway.
So, I'm not sorry, I gave you the wrong name, yes. I was thinking of, I can usually think of their names just like that.
So while this 44 spree was going on, Were you guys as a family having conversations about this guy possibly being the shooter of you?
Yes, I
Okay.
said I.
Jay?
We were kids. We were 8 and 6 when we got there, and 9 or 10 and 12 when we came home, and so we didn't know, and so it was never mentioned that Mom was even shot until we were about to come back.
Right.
And then when we came back, I was in 6th grade, and you're told a week earlier that your mother was shot, which was in itself a traumatic experience. But then when you go back to school and you're in the 6th grade, and you're like, yeah, my mother was shot, and blah, 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 and you tell people that it was Son of Sam, and you didn't realize that, there was a disbelief. We had no idea the Son of Sam phenomenon had gone on, that everybody saw him, knew him, was related to him. We weren't trying to be a part of the phenomenon. This was just something that happened to my mom.
Right.
So come 8th grade, I actually kept a copy of this with me, and probably up until about 2013 carried it around, because when somebody would say, tell him who shot your mom, and you'd go, it was Son of Sam. And then somebody would come on, and I would take the picture out. This is the sketch he drew. These are the pictures. You tell me. Whatever you decide, because you have to just let it go. Otherwise, you drive yourself crazy.
Right.
But this is what my mother carried around, and to this day still carries around in this envelope. As a matter of fact, a quick aside, my mother, we had to call a doctor. She had fallen, and the ambulance was here taking her to the hospital. And my wife goes in her pocketbook and sees SOS and thinks that this is documentation for her health, and hands it to the ambulance lady, and the lady goes, this is a police sketch. What am I going to do with this? So that's how long, I don't even know if my mother knew that.
It's just amazing.
I don't know that.
That nobody picked up this story in almost 50 years. Mike, do you have any other questions? Because I have a few, possibly. Do you have the mic on you, right?
Tell him about
Yeah.
the headmaster. No.
You don't have any other questions?
Okay.
We can another time.
So I just have a couple questions before we close this out. And we're friends now, Wendy.
Yes.
And anytime you guys feel like you want to reach out to me, please do. Hopefully the same applies for me to you. And so if there's anything that we missed in this interview, we can do a part 2. We can do as many as you want. But there's one main thing that two things that I want to find out from you. What would you like to see happen as a result of this?
I would like David Berkowitz, son of Sam, listed as my killer. Oh, excuse me, as my assailant.
And if you had the opportunity to be in a room with David Berkowitz, what would you say to this guy?
You're a rotten bastard.
I think that's all we need to say at this point.
What about all the phonies who go and caress him because he's now a Christian?
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Isn't that nice?
wonderful?
You get the little
Stupid
clicks.
people.
How embarrassing is that?
Stupid.
Especially that half the victims were Italian.
Right.
More than that.
Yes, they were, because he was in an Italian neighborhood.
Well, he
You
would
know,
never hit
in
the
the
cow. He was
Bronx.
too much of a coward.
Ah,
All right, guys. Well, I think that does it for what could be just part 1 of this, but we got the main story, and I'm in shock. I mean, I don't really even know what to say, and I'm very glad that we got this story on record, and hopefully this isn't the last we've heard of this. And Wendy, any final words before we say goodbye?
no, just find him guilty, please.
All right. So on that note,
Have him listed as one of his victims. Have me listed as one of his
right,
victims.
because you might possibly be an unknown victim of Son of Sam.
Exactly.
All right, Wendy. Well, listen, I'm going to take it on out. Mike, thank you so much for being here. And audience, thank you so much for listening. And we will see you at the next video.